Our distinguished guest, Sri Subramanian Swamy, is right here. All the honorable guests, friends, all the Reverend Swamijis, my humble pranams to all of you. Today we have assembled to once again to celebrate this Hindu Unity Day. And that really means is for all of us to reaffirm our belonging, our solidarity to this enormous, eternal faith that is Sanatana Dharma. Friends, let us not just go back and say, we Hindus are docile. We Hindus take everything for granted. I'm sorry, I beg to differ from that. I think we Hindus are strong because we have the tremendous backing of this great Vedanta, which really is the heart and soul of the Sanatana Dharma. We Hindus do not realize that we all have such freedom to practice what we want to practice. No one has to tell us, you do this or you do that. We don't appreciate the plight of so many others who cannot and do not have this kind of freedom. So it is these great scriptures, Upanishads, Vedas, which are the strength of our Sanatana Dharma. It is the teaching of these which has helped this great Dharma survive through thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And for me, as an optimist always, this is permanent, eternal. There are certain times we may feel a little dejected. Is there a possibility that Hindu Dharma is facing crisis? Answer is no. But of course, we all must do our efforts. If we just sit and we pray God and say He will give, no, we must make our efforts and then seek the blessing of that Almighty Supreme, and we will be blessed. Also, I'd like to emphasize the fact that in this country, we all have come here many, many years ago, maybe 35, 40, 45 years ago. And when we all came to this country, many of us got involved in our own professions, careers, and some of us, of course, still continue to practice our faiths in whatever little way we could. But there were others who really wanted to sort of make it easy for their American counterparts to talk about them and even change their names. Trust me, that hurt me the most. Names that is given to you by your dear parents cannot and should never be changed, regardless of who your counterparts are. If they can pronounce Polish and Czechoslovakian names, why not Hindu names? And I think it's important for us to keep that pride, that identity, and that is what is lacking in us. We have the strength of the manpower. We have the strength of the determination. But we lack one thing, and that is the pride, the inner pride that I am a Hindu. And let me also tell you that many of you have been here for so many years, at least in the 60s and the 70s, many Hindus were targeted because we wore saris like this and we had the tilak. And I know many women also had to change because they couldn't go to work because they were not allowed to go to work with their sari on. But had it been any other faith, do you think they would have kept quiet? Do you think they would have said, okay, we'll change it to a dress tomorrow because my boss tells me don't come in? Absolutely not. The reason you would do this is if you instill that pride which should never give up no matter what. My mother used to tell me, the only thing that you must carry the rest of your life is your self-respect. And that is the one that will protect you today, tomorrow, and forever. And also, folks, I would like to emphasize that Hinduism is not all rituals, not all religion, not all mantras and shlokas. But there is very important, and that is seva. It says, Manava seva is Madhava seva. And if seva is that important, what are you people doing to do the seva? Not just to your community for Hindus, but for the entire community. It's very important that we came to this country. We are grateful to this great nation of the United States of America for allowing us to practice our faith the way we want to. And therefore, we must give back something to this great nation. We must participate in all the community events. We must serve the entire community. Make our presence felt by the local, the state, the federal governments. Not for demands, but to say, we are with you. And that pride should be there. It's only then Hindus can be recognized. As Sheetal very clearly mentioned, in the name Hindu is not so well recognized even in the US Congress, because we shy away from all these community events. Now, especially in New York, you know, there are lots of other communities which are really growing in enormous numbers. But we as Hindus have already laid back. If we must survive, if your children must survive and benefit from this nation, please remember, don't forget to attend these community events. Give your helping hand. Make sure you do this seva in whatever way, fashion that you think is appropriate. So, friends, I know that all of you are waiting desperately to hear this great speaker, Dr. Subramanian Swamy. But I'd like to just conclude by saying that it is my dream, just like all of yours, that Hindus stand up straight and are recognized all over. As much as there are so many problems that Hindus face here in this country, as well as back home and probably the rest of the world. But we are no different. But there is one thing message that you take, as Swami Dayananda Saraswati always says. What you Hindus do in this country has a tremendous impact on Hindus back home in India. So, as Swami Vivekananda said, and somebody repeated that, wake up and rise. Embrace this great dharma. Make sure that you cannot and will not forget that you belong to that eternal faith, that you will pass this message to your children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and so on. When we are in this country, we owe it to ourselves, as they say. Our dharma first says is swadharma, your own dharma, your parivara dharma, that is your families. Then comes rashtra dharma, then comes the manava dharma. So you must follow all these dharmas to uphold this great eternal faith. So friends, I appeal to all of you to endorse one thing that I would like to announce. I would rather not call this as a Hindu Unity Day. I would like to do this from the temple from next year onwards as Hindu Awareness Day. Because unity is expected. We do not have to do anything to bring unity. What is important is to bring awareness of Hinduism, even among Hindus, because they are not quite aware of what Hinduism is all about. So with this, I thank you immensely for giving me these few minutes to share my thoughts. Now it's a greatest privilege for me to introduce someone who does not need any introduction whatsoever. But still, as a formality, I will say, Dr. Subramanian Swamy, as you know, he is former Union Cabinet Minister and also a Harvard graduate, economist, a professor, and of course, the greatest orator. He has been the greatest support of Hindu Dharma, Hindutva, Hindu unity, just about all about Hindus. And he has also been greatest successful in that wonderful historic event, Rama Setu. Cannot forget that. And one other thing is, he is among very few leaders who inevitably emphasize the importance of Sanskrit to be taught from the young age. And we are proud, I must tell you, in our temple, Sanskrit is taught at all levels. Those of you who are interested, please come and join. And finally, to add to his credentials, he has written innumerable books, many of which you already know, like Hindus Under Siege, Terrorism in India, Corruption, and so on. Of course, you have plenty of those. Now, folks, without undue delay, I request Dr. Subramanian Swamy to please come to the platform.
Dr. Umaji, Kataria ji, Sani ji, and friends. After listening to the short speech of Dr. Uma Mysurkar, I don't think I can give a more stirring speech than her. In Hindu tradition, when the male gods could not fight the Asuras, they had to go to Durga. I think a special compliment is due to all the women in India and abroad who have fiercely maintained our traditions and religion in the most diverse circumstance. Remember, Hindu religion is the only religion which did not succumb to conquest. Iran was ruled by the Zoroastrians, a highly evolved culture with a mighty army which went all the way up to Greece at one stage. But it was conquered by Islam, and within 15 years, Iran became a 100% Muslim country. The neighboring two countries, Mesopotamia, that country later on came to be known as Iraq, was conquered by Islam, and within 17 years it became 100% Muslim. Egypt in 21 years became 100% Muslim. Europe in 50 years became 100% Christian. But India was ruled for 800 years by Muslims, Islam, and 200 years by Christians through British imperialists, and we are still over 80% Hindu. We bear no grudges to Islam and to Christianity. In fact, I have been arguing that the Muslims of India and the Christians of India, if they acknowledge what is now scientifically proved to be true, that their ancestors were Hindus. The DNA studies now show that we are all the same people. Exploding the British history that we were Aryans and Dravidians and we came from outside, all that has disappeared. Even Raj Thackeray and the UP taxi driver in Bombay, they have the same DNA. We are one people. And we are 1 billion plus people inside India, and perhaps about 25 million abroad. But unity is not, as Umaji said, is not enough. It requires an awareness which I call as the mindset. So what if we are 1 billion plus people? If there are 1,000 goats at one place and one tiger comes, the majority and the numbers are with the goats, but they will run, not the tiger which will run. And even if you are strong, you are economically developed, that also is not sufficient. In a circus, you can see 5 lions in a cage, and one thin ringmaster will come and order them to climb up the benches. And they will obey him. Each one of them is strong enough to kill that ringmaster. But they have been programmed from childhood to think in a certain way. From cub status to full-grown status, their mindset has been prepared for obeying, and therefore they obey. Many people ask me why our Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, sitting in the chair of the Prime Ministership, cannot take a decision. Unless the ring mistress gives him an order. That is the mind. And it is this awareness that Dr. Umaji correctly said, that needs to be developed. Today we must globalize the Hindus. Why? Because first, the Hindus are under siege, not in physical terms, but in other ways. The books that have been written about Hindu religion, for which the Hindu American Foundation has put up a stiff fight, and many others have put up a stiff fight. The books rubbishing Hinduism is galore. That we were never one nation, we were put together by the British. That we are different people who have come together in 1947. So many things which are wrong. So these require to be corrected. There is conversion going on amongst of only Hindus in India. The conversion that is attempted is only of Hindus. Recently I went to the Himachal Pradesh High Court because the government of Himachal Pradesh requested me to argue why the law passed banning conversion on the basis of inducement, money, bribery, force should be declared illegal. The law is there. The Christian organization had challenged it. And the judge who heard me finally asked me one question. What is wrong if the Hindu has the freedom to convert? By any means, let them be converted. If they are so weak-minded, let them be converted by bribery. I asked the judge, is it not a fact that our constitution says that we should be a secular nation? He said, yes, it's part of the basic structure, it can never be changed. Then I said, let me tell you that today India has secularism because it is a Hindu majority country, otherwise there would be no secularism. Muslim majority countries, is there secularism? Can you build a temple in Saudi Arabia? Can you celebrate Diwali in Saudi Arabia? Can you even have Satyanarayan Puja inside your house? No. In fact, just now Saudi Arabia has issued an official order. Beware, non-Muslims, during Ramzan you cannot eat openly. You cannot go to a restaurant. You cannot be seen eating a sandwich at your office work. You must confine yourself to the customs of the local area. In Britain, the Prime Minister told the BBC on the 18th of December last year in an interview, and you can get it from the website, that England, the people here must realize that all said and done, we are a Christian country. In the United States, Indians who are contesting elections, they have converted to Christianity because they say there's no other way of getting a vote. If you remain as Hindus, you will not get vote. At least one presidential candidate who comes from a very strong Hindu family has converted and taken the name Bobby, I think. This is what Mahatma Gandhi said, that if there is conversion, then you have to change your clothes, you have to change your food, you have to change the way you live, the way you relate to your family. This country that is India, and the religion of Hinduism, it has evolved over centuries. It's the only religion which doesn't have a prophet whose word you have to accept. That is why a Hindu can never be a fundamentalist, because there is no book to follow, there is no church to follow, and there is no prophet to obey. But that doesn't mean just because we are not of that structure. We are the only religion which says all religions lead to God. We are the only religions who accepted the Jews and the Parsis to live in peace in our country, where they were persecuted all over the world. That is why the Israeli parliament passed a resolution soon after being set up, that thank you, India, you're the only country where Jews were not persecuted, and we thank you for it. These are the specialities. We invented mathematics, the zero, the decimal, calculus. Now the Americans accept that we invented rocket science. We became the wealthiest country of the world. In 1300, our share of the GDP was 35%. And of China at that stage was only 15%. Later on, ours came down after these conquests and invasions. And Chinese share naturally went up. But even as late as 1700, China and India together accounted for almost 45% of the world's GDP. Today we account for only 15%. So this change took place. Why? Why did India, with having this great religion, this economic power, why did it succumb to foreign invasions? It was not because of our divisions, as the British history writes. It is also not that we didn't fight. We fought. They were fighting, as I told you. We remained more than 80%, despite the fact that there was such brutal rule over 1,000 years. We, in fact, at every part of the country, there was rebellion, great heroism. Rana Pratap, he lost everything and he went to the forest. And there he didn't have food. So he took grass, cut the grass and dried it, and made it into paste and made chapatis out of that. His cousin, who was in Jaipur, Man Singh, he came to see him with a message from Akbar. accept Akbar as the emperor of India, and I'll return everything to Rana Pratap. So this is the message he brought. Rana Pratap said no. His cousin said, I have said so, and I've got my palace back, I've got all my wealth back. What is your difficulty? You want to live all your life eating grass? What will you get out of that? He says, what will I get out of that? Future generations of India, the mothers will name their sons after me, but they will spit on your name. That is what I will get. In Karnataka, Rani Chennamma. In Tamil Nadu, Kattabomman. The great Vijayanagaram Empire was founded by the Shankaracharya with 2 converts who have been forcibly converted to Islam. He reconverted them on a rock in Hampi. And out of that grew the glorious empire of the Vijayanagaram, which went as far as Orissa and Bengal, and it ruled for 300 years with more territory, covering more territory than the Mughal Empire at any stage of Mughal Empire. And yet if you read our history books, you will find one chapter for each Mughal emperor. What is the period from Akbar to Aurangzeb? 150 years. Vijayanagaram Empire, 300 years. But if you read the history book, one chapter for each Mughal emperor. But for Vijayanagaram Empire, at most a paragraph that there was a kingdom in South India called Vijayanagaram Empire. Ask most of the students in India, have you heard of Vijayanagaram Empire? They will not be able to say. Many will say, we never heard of it. That's how we have been brainwashed. We become circus lions or goats, not the Virat Hindu that Umaji was talking about. She didn't use the word Virat, but I am using the word Virat. So we need, therefore, to unite the Hindus for what? For first, fighting against this siege that we are under, to liberate ourselves from that by a new mindset. Our old mindset of playing safe, thinking of us as individuals. We assemble in millions in Kumbh Mela. No invitation from the government, no Hajj-like subsidy. Yet millions assemble in Kumbh Mela. But in the Kumbh Mela, we don't assemble as Hindus. We assemble to request God, please give me promotion in my job, or let me pass my examination. That is what we are doing. We can assemble, but that assemble doesn't create the mindset. So we need now to do that. And we have to recognize that there are communities around the world from different histories, Hindu communities which have different histories. You have the population in the United States, the young professionals, very well, who have done extremely well. The average per capita income of the Indian today is the highest of all communities in the United States. Great innovations are being done, number of CEOs. This is a different generation. In Saudi Arabia, in Qatar, and all these places, they are motor mechanics. They are factory workers, all doing extremely well. That's why they are there. Then there are people who went to Guyana, Trinidad, Mauritius, Fiji, and suffered huge tribulations, and still they maintain their Hindu traditions. I don't know if the story is true or not, but I was told the British, they were so cruel to the Hindus, but the Hindus in Guyana wanted to build a temple in an island. Or rather, they wanted to build a temple, and the British said, you can, but across the ocean, there's a small island, you can build it there. but only after your work is over, which meant 18 hours. The Guyana Hindus put stones on their heads and swam and built a temple there and have maintained their religion there. Same thing in Mauritius, same thing in the Mauritius Prime Minister was with me in a conference in Hong Kong, and he told me what hell they went through, but how Hindu religion is still there. We have temples now in Malaysia, we have it all over. But what is the fate of the Hindus? In Guyana, they are discriminated, we cannot raise our voice because there is no government of Hindus. Jayalalitha in Tamil Nadu passed a bill saying that there cannot be conversion under inducement, bribery, fraud. And she was visited by the US Consul General to say that we'll consider this as an unfriendly act and may be taken up in the Congress of the United States. She chickened out and withdrew it. I'm glad that the government of Himachal did not do so. There are many other governments which have not done so. Today we have Narendra Modi being denied a visa because some groups have written that he participated in the riot. But his name doesn't figure in any FIR. And if you start denying visa because you were a head of a government at a time when a riot took place, then what about Rajiv Gandhi when the anti-Sikh riots took place, when more people died than they died in Gujarat? What about the one genocide I have taken up in Meerut in 1987, where under the orders of the then Junior Minister for Home Affairs, Mr. Chidambaram, 42 young boys from the Muslim community were picked up in the middle of the night, put in a truck and taken to the edge of a canal and shot one by one. Who's taking it up? Is the United States Congress taking it up? No. Are the Indian liberals taking it up? No, it is I who has taken it up. This is the way in which the world is functioning today. So we have to fight that. And for that we have to organize. Unity for what? For organizing. Organizing for what? For establishing the rights of the Hindus to live according to their own rules. There are today threats from Hinduism itself. Yoga, it is scaring a lot of people. That's why now they want a Christian yoga. That is like saying you can have boiled ice cream. How can you have boiled ice cream? They feel that all these sadhu sannyasis who are coming here, the United States government is getting quite tough on giving of visas to them. Because they come here and people flock to them. Recently, Newsweek editor, maybe not recently, 3-4 years ago, the Newsweek editor Lisa Miller wrote an article, "We are all now Hindus." She says the rational view of Hindus that all religions lead to God, cremation, even reincarnation, all these things appeal to the Americans. Even though as Christians, they should not believe it. You had the case of that Hollywood actress, Julia Roberts, converting wholesale with her husband and children to Hinduism. So this is causing a little scare. That the rationality of the Hindu religion. You go to Sri Ravi Shankar's ashram, you see such a large number of foreigners, all well-to-do foreigners. Because Hinduism, long ago in the name of Sanatan Dharma, very specifically said, pure one-dimensional material progress will not produce happiness. You must harmonize material growth with spiritual values, then only you can be a happy person. This is what Sanatana Dharma says. To elevate money and wealth to the highest level, and to even restructure society on the basis of how much money you have, not going to produce happiness. That is the only explanation why so many Americans and Europeans are seen in the ashrams of our sadhus and sannyasis. The whole Varna system originally was created to play down the importance of money. Rishi Bhrigu had said that the sources of power must be decentralized, then only society can be stable. So what were the sources of power he identified? Knowledge, weapons, wealth, and land. And he separated it out. He said those who have pursue knowledge cannot have wealth, they cannot have weapons, they cannot have land. But because of the sacrifice and the fact that they are learned people, society must rank them the highest. Well, he is certainly disuniting the Hindus. No problem. I am telling you this, that unless you know what Hinduism is, how can we have unity? The whole process today is to divide the Hindus on the basis of the Varna system. I am no more an advocate of the Varna system because it has got linked to birth. And it cannot be reformed. To reform it is impossible just now. Just now there is only one way in which we can cure this problem, and that is to say we are Hindus first and Hindus last. That is the only way we can unite. Now, I also would like globalization of Hindu unity because of the fact that, as Umaji said, what you people do here has an effect back in India. In the emergency, it was the Hindu community in the United States. Other communities did not participate of the Indian community, other religious communities. It was primarily the Hindu community in the United States, which was the forefront of opposing the state of emergency, informing their parents, their families about what the truth was, and thereby defeating the censorship. So therefore, we need globalization, because if you want even India to survive, we need the Hindus abroad to be united and committed to helping the Hindus in India. So this is the reason. Now, how is this unity to be structured? That unity must come by a clarity of our identity. All the liberal writers on India today are saying that we are not originally one people. We've been put together by an administrative union in 1947. But that is not correct. We are a long tradition of the Hindu civilization. And this long tradition, others have joined in, may have even contributed. But that doesn't change the character of the country. The Ganga river flows, so many rivers join it on the way, but it has always been known as Ganga and nothing else. You don't hyphenate the name of Ganga. The same way you do not hyphenate the name of Hinduism. We are a Hindu country. Muslims and Christians are welcome to live in this country, in our country, and in the community of Hindus abroad, as long as they are with us. The Parsis, nobody ever says anything against the Parsis. Why? Today, the Chief Justice of India is a Parsi. Till yesterday, the Air Force Chief was a Parsi. Attorney General was a Parsi. The biggest industrialist in India is a Parsi. There are Parsis all over, but we don't even recognize them as Parsis in that sense. Therefore, I am saying to you that what we need is that all communities must find its equilibrium with the Hindu community. They must have harmonized relationship. We have a problem with Christianity and Islam not because they are bad religions, they are very clear. Their mind is very clear. It is our mind which is not clear. Umar Farooq has recently given a statement that Israeli tourists should not come to Kashmir because we are a Muslim majority country. Karunanidhi says we should not train the Sri Lankan Air Force men because we are Tamils. This means that we are now allowing these regional differences to surmount the national outlook. If you are a nationalist Muslim, what suits Indian international policy or foreign policy, you should support that. Israel gives us weapons which nobody else gives us. Israel came to our assistance in 1965 war when we didn't have diplomatic relations. Israel supported us in 1971. Israel supports us in data on terrorism. So it's in our national policy. We have no quarrel with Israel on Kashmir or in border or any of the other things which we have with several other countries. And yet, Umar Farooq says, no, you can't have relations with Israel because you are a Muslim majority state. And once it became a Muslim majority state, and how did it become? 5 lakh Hindus were driven out of that state. And they are living in refugee camps. How many of us are speaking up for them? We are not speaking up for them. You go to Kerala, those districts where Muslims are in majority, they have set up Shariat court. And that Shariat court is supposed to supersede the courts set up under our constitution. There was a Christian professor who set an exam paper on English literature, on English language, in which he lifted one article from the newspaper and set the question, correct the punctuation marks of this article. He probably didn't read the article properly. But there was one line in which some derogatory references were made to Prophet Muhammad. So the Sharia court in Kerala, which is illegal, passed an edict, an order, that this professor's hand will be cut as punishment. And 4 youth came when he was in a morning walk and cut his hand, both his hands. So when they are in majority, they are clear. Taliban is also clear. Just now they shot a woman in a public place. 9 times the bullet was pumped into her, and everybody raised the slogan, Allahu Akbar. That is their system. But I am saying I will not allow this system in my country. You want to live, you harmonize with us. And I can tell you that if the Hindu majority spoke in that language, the Muslims will agree, because they have agreed in Australia. Australia, one imam said that I don't want uniform civil code. We want our Shariat. Next day, the Australian Prime Minister, who was also a woman, she said, if you want Shariat, you go and look for another country. In Australia, you are not going to get Shariat. The following day, all Muslim organizations said that this imam is a mad fellow. We are quite happy with uniform civil code. Same thing in the United States. But in India, they'll say, no, we won't agree. And they will only not agree to civil code. Uniform civil code, no. But today, not one Muslim voice is raised in India for opposition to a uniform criminal code. We have a uniform criminal code in India, the Indian Penal Code. It applies to Hindus and Muslims equally. But no Muslim is demanding that you change that, except where there is Muslim majority, as in Kerala, Malappuram, or in Kashmir. Why? Because if you have separate code, criminal code for the Muslims, then you will have to cut their hands or knock out their eyes for crimes committed. And that they don't want where they are not in majority. So I am explaining to you this phenomenon where this is not a question, we are not anti-Hindu, anti-Muslim, we are not anti-Christian, but we want our country to have an harmonized existence. And one way of that harmony, I explained to you already, is that all Muslims and Christians should accept what is the truth, namely that their ancestors are Hindus, and therefore they belong to India. And that is the truth. And then we can make them as part of our family, and we call India as a Hindustani society. Not necessarily a Hindu society, but a Hindustani society. So we have therefore to work in this direction. And in this direction, what steps should be taken? First of all, I would say that slowly and slowly, with the help of the community, we should build a society around the temples wherever they are. Originally, temples were not only for a place for going to worship, but also for teaching of it. Almost a university used to be connected with it. Like here, you have begun by teaching Sanskrit and yoga. I think more and more activities should surround the temple.